Good morning. My name's Hillary, and this is Sunday Morning Live with John M. And here's our host, John M.
Good morning. We are back, as we always are on Sunday mornings, and I have a very special guest with me. I'm very excited about Ted Russell Kamp, and he is going to be joining me on this first song, which is one of my older songs from an album, Still Here, which I did back in Nashville. This is called White Lines and Highway Signs. 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you for your open door. Thank you for a real good time. You're a friend of a friend, and a friend of a friend of mine is a friend of mine. And I've got to go now, get on the road, and you know how I feel. Watching white lines, signs, keep my hands on the wheel. So come and stay when you're up my way. Call me when you get in. But you've got to fly now, so do I. So good luck until then. And I've got to go now, get on the road, and you know how I feel. Watching white lines and highway signs, keep my hands on the wheel. All right. I look at you and laugh at the things we've done. We almost cried when we both got fried on the beach, but it sure was fun. And you're going back alone to your broken home, and I know how you feel. We're in love, you're insane, you're on a train, I am in an automobile. Hey! And I've got to go now, get on the road, and you know how I feel. Watching white lines and highway signs, I keep my hands on the wheel, yeah. And I've got to go now, get on the road, and you know how I feel. Watching white lines and highway signs, I keep my hands on the wheel, keep my hands on the wheel. All right, White Lines and Highway Songs, an oldie, moldy, should have been soldy. So good morning, welcome to you all. Are there people here?
Oh, tons of people. Barry Rudolph,
Hey, Barry.
Harold LaRue, Chris Payne. Is that somebody you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Justin.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for
Another
joining
bass
us.
player, Justin Dupre.
Well, thank you for checking us out.
And Angelina and Marilyn and Gary.
Well, welcome to you all.
Lots of hearts and lots of thumbs up during that song. It was
Great.
awesome.
Good.
Well, I always love playing with Ted. This is Ted Russell Kamp. And Ted and I met, I discovered you at one of J.C. Hike's
Songwriter Serenade.
Songwriter Serenade. And you were playing bass behind a tall girl, I think. I'm trying to remember her name.
I know I did it a few times with Bliss Bowen.
Bliss Bowen. Yeah, no, she's not that tall. I was thinking of somebody else. Bliss Bowen, that's who
There
it
was
was.
another time with a woman named Chelsea from Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up playing a lot.
Anyway,
She was pretty
I said...
talented and tall.
So, and I went over and introduced myself, and said, you're pretty good on that thing.
Thank you.
And that's what you said. You said, thank you. And and we've been playing since then. And you play with all kinds of people. You tour pretty regularly with Shooter Jennings.
Yeah.
And how did you get that gig, by the way? That's
I've known Shooter since 2003 is when we met. And he was in LA. He had another band called Stargun, which was kind of his first, and they were much more of a rock band. And that band was breaking up, and he wanted to do more, just add country. And for those of you who don't know, Shooter is the son of Waylon Jennings and Jesse Coulter. And he wanted to add more of that rootsiness and country influence. He has as much of a rock and roll heart as he does a country heart.
Yeah.
And this other band, Stargun, didn't really do any of the country. So he was looking for new musicians, and the new band was kind of forming, and then two different people recommended me to him. Like his bass player was kind of leaving or not as interested, and two different friends of his said, you got to check out Ted. He loves the 70s thing, he loves country music, he's a rock and roller, he'll totally get you and your music, call him.
Yeah.
So he called me, and we kind of literally from the first night we had this kind of audition / hangout. And I felt the music right away. I really kind of, you know how sometimes when you're playing with someone, you just kind of know where the music is going to go, and
Yes.
you feel it in a very organic way.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what happened.
I love that.
So it was really
magic.
cool, and this kind of instinctive bond musically we had. So we just started playing, and I've been playing with him off and on for 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's a very organic way to get together, and the bond grew, and he's did a bunch of records together.
And you also, and I know you play with a bunch of other people too, and we'll get to that in a minute, but you also tour a fair amount on fronting your own show.
Yeah, Ted Russell Kamp is my full name, and I do a lot of solo tours, sometimes with a band, sometimes solo. Usually I'll, fly to Texas and get a bunch of friends together, put my band together for a week or two and tour around Texas or that part of the country. Sometimes it's Nashville. I go to Europe once a year, so I'll tour in Europe for usually about 3 weeks at a time.
What impresses me, one of the things that impresses me that you do, that I don't know if you're just more organized than most musicians or have a better business mind or what, but I know there have been times when you'll go out with Shooter, and they'll either at the front end or the back end of whatever you're doing, or sometimes even in the middle, they'll be like a few days off or something. And so, well, I can book a few dates for myself right in here.
Yeah.
And
I love doing that.
And do you do all your own booking, or do you have some?
I do most of it. I've got a handful of friends and booking agents that will kind of help put together a few shows here and there, or one great musician, a buddy of mine named Thomas Fontaine, lives in Gothenburg, Sweden. So I'll usually just say, hey, I'm going to be coming to Sweden. What works for you? And then he'll kind of book a bunch of shows that we can do together. So I've got a few situations like that. But for the most part, it's just me calling promoters and musicians and friends of mine putting together shows.
That's great.
And it works. It works well.
Well, we're gonna Yes,
Jimmy Hunter is here.
Hey, Jimmy. Jimmy is a cool guy who watches every single one of these shows.
Well, Jimmy, thanks for watching.
He's a studio guy and a drummer.
Oh, nice.
And does a bunch of different things. You and I are going to play some more in a minute, but and we're going to talk some more.
Great.
But since we're talking about the fact that you do a lot of music, why don't you do some music?
All right, great. So here's one of mine. It's called Hold On. When your feelings start to fade and you're tired and lost your way, you've been running like the river to the sea. When you're through with chasing highs, put down your disguise and hold on to me. You've been looking for a friend, a love loyal to the end, who might even know you better than me. When that love has come and gone, and you're barely hanging on, and hold on to me. Hold on, and on and on. Hold on to me. Let go of all your troubles. Let go and let them be. And hold on to me. I'm the one who's always loved you, put nothing else above you. Am I fool to sit and wait so patiently? Now we can leave your past behind, 'cause someday soon you'll find you can hold on to me. Hold on. Hold on to me. Let go of all your troubles. Let go and let them be. And hold on to me. Let go of all your lovers. Let go and let them be. Hold on to me. Now you can hold on to me.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's a great
Thank
song,
you.
Ted.
Thank you.
By the way, Jimmy Hunter reminded me that he was there at the Genghis Khan gig. You met him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he lives around the corner.
Well, then, good to, I guess, digitally meet you again. Thanks for checking in.
Well, that was fun. I
Thank
have
you.
not heard that song before.
Thank you very much.
And it's, you know, I'm gonna kind of go out on a limb here and say something that I hope you take as a compliment. I'm gonna say two things.
Well, me too.
And I hope you take them both as a compliment. When I first saw you, and I saw, you know, with the hair and the whole look you have, my first thought was that you reminded me of, I'm sure you've seen the movie Woodstock many times.
Yeah.
And that guy Chip, one of the organizers, you know, the kind of reddish haired guy.
You know, I got to see it again. I don't remember Chip specifically.
You remind me. He has a great moment in the film where some director is asking him these really stupid questions, and they're setting up. You know, it's in the early part of the film. They're getting everything ready, And this guy says, what is it that musicians have that with so many people would come to an event like this? And Chip says, music.
Good answer. Good answer.
But anyway, you remind me of him a little bit. And when you're singing just now, and again, I mean this as a compliment, your singing style reminds me a little bit of Arlo Guthrie.
Well, that's definitely a compliment, so thank you.
It's, songs not as comedic as some of his stuff, but not everything he does is funny.
No, but he had a ton of personality.
Yeah.
And was a real talent and was a real storyteller. So yeah, that's definitely a compliment.
So, yeah. So, cool. So, you were originally, we were talking earlier, you were born in New York City there?
Suburbs, Westchester.
Suburbs, okay.
So, but yeah, I grew up in New York and was there until I finished college.
And
then Seattle for about 5-6 years, and then I came to LA.
And did you, when you were in Seattle, did you do the grunge thing?
No, actually, I like a lot of the grunge, and it kind of moves me much more now than it did when it was coming out. I was actually playing jazz for a living.
Oh, wow.
I got heavily in love with jazz in tail end of high school and really kind of through college. And so when I moved to Seattle, one of the first things I did was bought an upright bass. And I was playing jazz, some blues. But yeah, so when grunge was happening, I was friends with some of those people, and I was also freelancing, and of course I grew up playing rock and roll and loved it. So I was still playing some rock, and I ended up in some bands that would kind of open up for some of the grunge musicians that were like the huge ones, would have these cool side projects. And so I would be the other bands on the bill at different rock clubs in Seattle on those nights. Mm-hmm. But I was playing jazz, and then I realized that Tom Waits' The Heart of Saturday Night was my favorite album.
I love that.
And then I realized that's really a singer-songwriter album disguised as a jazz record. Because the arrangements are really jazz, and the playing is so great. But they really are Tom Waits songs. And that kind of got me out of that. There was also a great duo that were this mandolin and violinist and guitar player. They would both switch off on instruments, and they were really into David Grisman. Yeah. And that kind of great, the way David Grisman and Jerry Garcia would kind of blur gypsy music and jazz and folk and bluegrass. So I started easing out of the jazz world into back into rock and pop, and it wasn't really called Americana at the time, but that's the roots, eclectic kind of American roots music.
So speaking of mandolin, I saw a picture of you online playing a mandolin.
Yeah.
So I know you play that, and you play guitar, and you play bass. And I assume, because I know you have a studio, I assume you do at least a little bit of keyboard stuff. Anything else? Do you play?
Trumpet was my first instrument.
Was it really?
So
it was mine too.
One of my favorite things to do now is when I'm working on a record, I can play trumpet and trombone.
Wow.
On like a couple songs, usually.
You don't want me to get anywhere near a trumpet.
Well, that's okay.
But
one of the hard things about the trumpet is it's still completely in my fingers. My fingers could play anything I could ever have played when I was like in high school and college and playing trumpet regularly. But the embouchure, the lips, lose it. So it's like my range is about half of what it used to be. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
When I need to play trumpet, I practice for a couple weeks, and then I do my session, and then I don't play for 6 more months. Hey, let's do another song.
Is there? Would you say bass is your primary instrument?
Yes. Bass, and then kind of as a singer-songwriter, I play bass when I play with a band. Sometimes I play with the guitar when I'm doing solo stuff. But bass. I kind of switched from trumpet to bass when I was 13 or 14.
Oh, okay.
And even though I kept playing trumpet, bass became my love.
Well, I love your bass playing.
Thank you very much.
Let's do another song. That's a good idea, Ted. This is one of my newer songs that I have played once or twice before on this show, but I've never really played it right. So,
well, let's do it today.
This morning, Ted's going to make me play it right. This is called My Country. What has become of my country, where Lady Liberty said, bring all your poor huddled masses onto me. Lately that's not the America I see. What has become of my country? What if Abraham Lincoln came back today? Or Kennedy, or Dr. King? Can you imagine the messages they would bring? Would they say, don't build that wall, Mr. President, let freedom ring? Have we elected a president or a king? What has become of my country? My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing.